All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and we are back at it. Fight weekend is here. Just had the weigh-in with Jermell Charlo, Brian Castano, also Jaron Ennis and Castano Clayton. And man, it was a little bit shocking seeing Jermell Charlo and what he came in at. Let's talk about that and the rest of the fights in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Today we are in the 154-pound and the 147-pound division. We have a big fight coming up tomorrow night between Brian Castano, who's the WBO 154-pound champion, and Jermell Charlo, who is the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF world champion. They will be fighting in a fight for the undisputed title of the world, and also on the undercard, up and coming, potentially future superstar Jaron Ennis will be fighting in a fight for the mandatory shot at Errol Spence Jr.'s IBF belt. But before I get into what I saw in Jermell Charlo, that was like, I'm not quite sure how to take this, but I'm going to take it in a positive way. But before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure, if you like the content, to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. All right, so we had the weigh-in for the fights today. Everything looked pretty normal, not too crazy. The only thing that really stood out to me was the fact that Jermell Charlo weighed in at 152 pounds, a full 2 pounds below the 154-pound weight limit. And that I am pretty sure is unique for Jermell Charlo. I don't recall him being that far underneath the weight limit before, and that could mean one or two things. It could either mean that he overtrained and that he drained too much weight because he overdid it in training, you know, and overexerted himself and came in underweight. Or it could mean that he's maybe a little bit of a smaller guy than you think, and that he just really is primed and ready to go. Now, as far as how he looked, he didn't look drained. Right, to me, he didn't look drained. He looked fresh. He looked energetic. You know, I definitely did the little test that people say, you know, that people have after the weigh-ins, and I watched Brian Castano. I watched Jermell Charlo to see exactly who was going to head for the water first. And I saw in the interview, Brian Castano was chugging away at Gatorade or whatever it was to get it back in his body. And I didn't see that out of Jermell Charlo. So I'm going to take it as a positive that he came in that far underneath weight. But however, man, I've definitely seen times where if you come too far underweight, that's a sign that you may have overdid it in your training and overshot your target, right? Whatever the case is, though, the fight is going to be on. Jermell looked very energetic in the press conference. He didn't look lethargic at all. He looked like the same type of cat with the wild eyes, looking like he's trying to hurt whoever it is he's trying to fight. And I am definitely looking forward to this fight. I have not done an official prediction video for the fight, other than to say that I'm pretty sure Jermell Charlo, if all he has to do is be more active in the beginning of the fight, and that he should be able to win the fight against Brian Castano. I think in the last fight the last fight that we had last year, because it was undisputed, that Jermell Charlo, I think maybe the moment might have gotten to him a little bit in that fight, because he really did look out of sorts in the first half of the fight. His trainer, Derek James, wasn't happy with him, over the first several rounds, and he just looked lethargic. He looked like, didn't look like he was all the way there. However, when they told him he was down and he got to the point where he knew he needed to win rounds, pretty much from round 6 or 7 on, all the way to the end, he put it on and he won the rounds. He got himself back into the fight and he fought himself. In my opinion, he fought himself to a draw. So if they start off in round number 13 and Jermell Charlo has the same amount of urgency, putting rounds in the bank from the very beginning of the fight, I think he should do really well, and he should be able to get that win. I don't think that he's really at any risk of Brian Castano hurting him. Brian Castano, to me, is the type of fighter, and he showed this with Erislandy Lara. He showed it, and he showed it in the first fight with Jermell Charlo, that he's a guy that can hang with you, and that is very, very tight guard. So it's really hard to find and get clean shots off on him. But he's not somebody that is tremendously busy, but he's a very, very sound, fundamental fighter. And all of those guys from Argentina are difficult to fight, man. Like, I'm telling you, every time I hear of somebody coming to fight one of the fighters that I like from Argentina, and he's fighting in Argentina, I always say, oh man, here comes some craziness, because they are better fighters. They are oftentimes and most times are much better fighters, or more difficult and awkward fighters than their resume, than their records and their resume shows. And man, you can just go on and on with examples, of that being the situation. Just very, very awkward fighters. But Jermell looked good. He looked active. So hopefully that coming under that far underweight won't be that big. Won't be that big a deal. Now, as far as the undercard fight, that's a fight that I'm looking forward to pretty much almost as much as I am looking forward to the main event, man, with Jaron Ennis and Castano Clayton. Castano Clayton is an undefeated fighter. I think he's like 19-0-1. He had a draw against Sergey Lipinets that a lot of people thought that Castano Clayton won. So they have that common opponent, Jaron Ennis. But when Jaron Ennis fought Castano Clayton, fought Sergey Lipinets, ran through Sergey Lipinets like it wasn't a problem. Not saying that you can do those triangle things in boxing, because they really don't work. Just because Brian Castano had Castano Clayton had a close fight with Sergey Lipinets, and Jaron Ennis blew out Sergey Lipinets, doesn't mean that Jaron's gonna blow out Castano Clayton. However, I do think when you look at the styles of the fighters, that Jaron Ennis is going to blow out Castano Clayton and get that mandatory shot, become the IBF mandatory for Errol Spence Jr.'s belt. That's what I look forward to in that fight, but looking forward to him fighting on a big card. Another really great thing about this card is it is not pay-per-view. There's been a lot of matches that have been made on Showtime recently, and the majority of them have been pay-per-view fights. Even like the Keith Thurman, Mario Barrios fight was pay-per-view. Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin was pay-per-view. So to see this undisputed fight between Jermell and Brian Castano on and be able to see the IBF title eliminator with Ennis and Clayton, that to me is, man, absolutely great deal. Really looking forward to seeing the fight, man. You guys let me know in the comment section what you think is going to happen. And with that, I'm out. Peace.